This conference will now be recorded.
Call the Bike and Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee to order. It is 3:33. Roll call, please.
Randy Johnson.
Present.
Leroy Vogt.
Here.
Howes Jago.
Here.
Neil Schmidt.
Here.
Jessica Atkinson.
Here.
Annette Obinger.
Here.
And Tracy Fluke.
Here. Maybe before we do Pledge of Allegiance real quick, I'd like to introduce, so Rex is here, everyone knows Rex, but the gentleman sitting at the end here is our new administrator, Joel Grizz, I'm going to pronounce it wrong.
Joel Gregozeski.
Grizz. So he is our administrator, he's going to sit here tonight, he just started maybe
A month ago.
a month ago.
Yep.
And anything else?
Welcome to Ashwaubenon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Looking forward to the opportunity here and appreciate your willingness to allow me to sit in on your meeting. So I'll just kind of sit as a bird on the shelf, if you will, and just listen in at this point and kind of get a good grasp of what you guys are all about.
Thank you, Joel. And stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America.
One
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. On the agenda, does anybody have anything that they could change or move on the agenda? All right. And we will go on, we need a motion for that? I'm sorry, I just forget that. So
That's okay.
remind me. Okay, so we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll
moved,
motion to
Mr.
approve
Kyle.
it. This is Dale.
A second?
Randy.
Second.
Randy, second.
Mhm.
Thank you. All in favor? You guys say
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Action on the minutes from the November 9th, Bike and Pedestrian Committee. Any comments on the minutes? Otherwise, I look for a motion to approve. So move. And that. Second, anybody?
I'll second it. This is Dale.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, we'll go through comments from the public. I don't know if there's no public in the room really, but must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address. Limited to 5 minutes. We are just here to listen. We will not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed and board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there any public comments?
And that I have.
Okay, hearing none, we will continue. We don't need a motion that right, Susie? Okay. Next item is a site plan review. Kyle, do you have anything to report from site plan review, please?
There were just a couple of things that came across. There is going to be a new apartment building complex, 88 units in the 600 block of Mike McCarthy Way. So I was pleased to see in the plans that they've included space for bicycle storage, which was kind of the first time I've seen that in the many apartment complexes that come up. So I've also just recommended that there be bike parking compatible with the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professional Guidelines. And I'm pretty sure Aaron has that and he passes those guidelines on. There is a Fresnesius, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, kidney care is going in at 2240 Holmgren Way. And it looks like it's going to be a fairly large building with a lot of offices, and that the plans show that they have separate parking or separate entrances for staff and for patients. And I indicated that I wanted bike parking for the staff, and I guess part of my justification is we're seeing more and more apartment complexes, apartments in Ashwaubenon. So if people are living in these apartments and working at this center, it would be nice to encourage them to bike to work. And
The old Green Bay Blue building,
Okay.
right
Okay.
across.
What about bike parking for people that are coming there, Kyle?
I also put that I wanted that too. You know, so I said that I would like separate parking area, bike parking for clients and for staff. You know, typically in a lot of these buildings, everybody uses the same entrance, but because they showed they had a staff entrance, I specifically said that I wanted to encourage staff to bike there. But yeah, I asked for bike parking for both clients, patients, and for the staff. And there's a third one that just came in, and there's an auto repair, looks like a body shop on the 309195 Market Street. And I guess my comment was that I didn't think there was really a justification for separate bike parking for that. If the employees are coming in, I think they could find a place to park their bike. And I didn't think there would be much bike traffic going in there, because if you're going to a body shop, you're bringing your car in, and if you're going to bike home, you're just going to stick your car in the trunk. So I didn't feel there was any need to mention it there.
Sounds good. Anything else, Kyle?
No, those were the three that came across.
Okay. Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Kyle on anything? Great. Thank you, Kyle. Thanks for serving on that committee too. Okay, so we're on to action items. The first action item is review and discussion on past, present, and future bike and pedestrian projects. Rex, I believe, has that one.
Yeah, I just wanted to put together a quick list of what was accomplished in the village, I guess, in the last couple of years in terms of sidewalks, trails, pathways, whether they be paved, unpaved, that type of thing. I might have missed a few, but I think I got the majority of them on there. Obviously, that's the first part of your page 9, the first number of bullet points. The middle portion is what the village is currently working on, which is a couple of trail projects, obviously, the Ashwaubenon River Trail, the River Trail Bridge, West Main Avenue Trail, and then the sidewalk panel extensions near existing push buttons at village signalized intersections. I know Doug has got that on his plate, and he'll be working on that this year. So those are the ones that are, I guess, in queue, that are actively being worked on at this point. And then future considerations, ones that I know are I don't want to say they're on the back burner. They are on the back burner, but they're like next in line per se. They're not like totally on the back burner. So, you know, they can only do so much. So the bottom portion, in fact, the Vanderparen Way sidewalk might actually be more for the middle, because I know they're probably already doing some design for that. But you know, you've got the Ridge Road sidewalk. I think there's going to be a community meeting this year on that. So that might be in the middle as well, quite honestly, sorry. But a couple other ones, obviously, that are going to be coming up very, very quickly that we know are going to at least be discussed for whether or not to move forward on them. So I just wanted to kind of give everyone in a new year, new chair for the committee, kind of an update on where we are, where we've been, and what's going on. I don't know if anyone has any questions on anything that's on there, but it's more just as a guideline of what's taking place and what's coming up on the docket here.
Rex, this is Dale. So were those actually on the plan, or are those just items that were completed?
Some were on the plan, some were not on the plan.
Okay.
You know, like some of the trails that you know, the Ashwaubenon or the Ashwaubenon Sports Complex Trail, the Hidden Valley, little pieces like that, those weren't on the bike and ped plan. Those just kind of made sense to do when we had the opportunity to do them.
Okay. I'll do a little comparison to our plan just so that we make sure they're checked off.
Yeah, but there were a number of them that were on the plan, though, Dale, as well.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
My question, Rex, Pilgrim Way sidewalk, north side up from Ashland to South Broadway, is that still part of a grant and weren't we kind of pushed to do it from the state or something like that? Or does that come out of our general funds?
Where are we talking about, Annette?
It's future considerations, the second last Pilgrim Way sidewalk from Ashland to South Broadway.
No, we're not pushed in it. That's something that the village wants to do because of, you've got a lot of additional housing units being built down there. You've got Alden Station. You've got another huge business complex that's going up by the marina. The old Fratello's has been sold and is reopening hopefully this spring potentially. You've got obviously Bay Harbor condominiums. You've got the Marriott extended stay down there. So with, and now you've got the Ashwaubenon River Trail, obviously that's still down there. The Aloft Hotel. So with a lot of increased development on the riverfront, the thought is how do we get those people, if they choose to get into our entertainment and shopping district by foot or by bike, how do we get them there? And that would seem to make sense. We've already got a sidewalk that's coming up from Holmgren Way
To Ashland.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. It makes sense if we have one from Holmgren Way to Ashland, but if we don't have that, the other one makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that one actually crosses at Western Racket, I think is where the cross is. So it would be from Ashland to Broadway, but probably about, give or take 50 to 100 yards, to connect to the Western Racket crossing, which is more of a mid-block crossing.
Okay, makes sense. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. That's inside. That's something the village wants to do, and it kind of said, okay, this makes sense to do.
Okay. Good job, Rex, on the outline. I was impressed.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the list, anybody, on either the ones that are completed, the ones in queue or future? Anything to add on any of those? Or questions on any of them? I have a couple questions for maybe future consideration. Maybe you guys have discussed this already. Ridge Road sidewalk from Hanson to Wabi Lane. I know that has been mentioned, I think, in the past. I noticed Ridge Road is on here, but way on the northern part.
Yep, it's on the bike and ped plan. It's just
Not.
timing wise, it's not like on deck.
Okay. So I just noticed the Hanson one was on there, which is a huge connection. And then that goes right by Ridge, so that would be
Right.
nice to have the connection then
Yep.
going the other direction.
Yep.
Let's see, the other question I had, and I noticed you had the Titletown area. Hopefully all of you have gone through the new walkway on Titletown between basically Titletown area over to Lambeau Field. It's a really nice setup for pedestrians. The only thing I would like to see there or ask them to check into a little further is putting in stop bars for the motor vehicles that are coming up to that intersection. We've been talking to my husband and I have been up there a fair amount just to get out a bit, and talking to some of the staff there, and they said they still see quite a few close calls at that intersection, people just not paying attention as much as they should. And another way to warn people about that is to put in what they call stop bars. And the stop bars for the motor vehicles are about 2 car lengths away from the edge of the sidewalk or the crosswalk. And that way it keeps the motor vehicles back further so that the area is more visible to people, especially because there's multiple lanes coming through there. So that would be my suggestion, is maybe to check with engineering and see if that something like that could be added. Basically, it looks like shark teeth. Basically, it's a bunch of triangles that go across the street about 2 car lengths, like I said, from the edge of the crosswalk. And that's just a warning for the motor vehicle drivers to stop there. And there's usually a sign there that says, motor vehicle stop here to yield to pedestrians. So it would be on both the northbound and the southbound legs of that roadway. So I think it's just something to look into, add a little more safety up there, especially when the Packer games start again, which they will, and there's going to have a few people there this weekend. It would be better, you know, as much as we can make it as safe as we can. So I think maybe just something to look into and see if engineering could look into that.
Tracy, is that something that is just painted on the road surface?
Yes, it's painted on the road surface and it looks like a bunch of triangles
Okay.
with the point towards the cars. It's called shark teeth, and it goes straight across both lanes. And then, like I said, there's usually typically a sign next to it saying motor vehicles stop here to yield to pedestrians. So, I mean, it's really well lit. It has a lot of good signage, but I think having that there will keep people back from the crosswalk, because sometimes people pull right up to the edge of the crosswalk and then they're blocking the view from the other motor vehicles that are coming through there. So it'll add some safety and some sight lines better for the motor vehicle drivers that are coming through there.
Tracy, so I need to ask, this is Dale. So can we just add this to the plan, or do we have to vote on it? We need to capture it, not just talk about it.
Yeah. I don't know, what do you think, Rex? Can we add it, or is this?
I mean, if you want official to be able to check it off as an accomplishment, I mean, you could request that be added to the plan. I mean, that's easily enough done. I would probably say you want to designate someone to talk to
Engineering?
Director Martin or Steve Burr regarding the actual installation of them, of what the feasibility of that is.
Okay. So maybe a motion to start it off to direct a contact with the engineering department to see if it's feasible, and then have them do the research and see, you know, how it should be handled if indeed we want to go there. And then if it is, then we can put it on the plan. Does that sound like a plan? Or say if it is approved, we could put it onto the plan at that time?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Oh, thank you.
You're here.
Here, here.
Should that have been done under number 9, or can it go where it is?
You can,
Minor review of what we're talking about now.
no, you can do it here.
Okay.
And how does that read, Tracy, that motion you just did?
Okay, how about the motion is to direct staff to check, contact the engineering department and see if, and talk to them about putting in an advanced stop, what the heck is a technical term? Advanced stop bar for the motor vehicle drivers on the crossing on Ridge near the stadium, and have them do the, you know, design that or see if that's something that they can put in. And then Dale, do you second that? Sounds good. Okay.
Yep, I'll second that. Yep, and then Sue and I can make sure we capture it into the plan.
Okay. Sounds good. And the only other comment I have is on Vanderpeering Way, the sidewalk on the section between Oneida Street and Holmgren. The village is,
Tracy,
yep,
Tracy,
Yes.
we seconded the motion, but we didn't have a vote for all saying aye.
I'm sorry, I am not good at running meetings. Let's step back. Okay, so let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 There we go. Carried
Opposed?
unanimously.
Thank you, Annette. Opposed, anybody? All right, motion carried. Thank you. Please do that, you guys, if I forget something. It's been a while since I've run meetings. So I appreciate your input. So with that, going back to Vanderpeeren Way, the road section between Oneida and Holmgren is going to be redone this year, and they're going to be going to a 3-lane configuration. So it will be 1 lane each direction, and then what they call a twiddle in the middle. So it's very similar to Willard. If you guys have ever been on Willard, that's a 3-lane configuration. So it'll be very similar to that on Vanderpeeren Way. Like Rex said, they do have plans to put a sidewalk on the south side of that piece. They built last year, is that correct, Rex? They built the from Holmgren to Ashland. and they put a sidewalk on the south side at that time. So right now there's a sidewalk from Holmgren out to Ashland on Vanderpuren Way. The holdup with the sidewalk on that particular piece of property is right-of-way purchase, a requirement for right-of-way purchase on the corner of Holmgren and Vanderpuren. So it would be on the southwest corner. So right behind where the post office is, that building where the post office is, there's that empty field behind there.
Yep.
So evidently the property goes almost to the curb line. So there isn't any right of way in there. Village doesn't have right of way for a sidewalk. So I have asked Doug, when they were doing the design plans for that particular project, they did a traffic count in that intersection of Holmgren and Vanderpuren to see the traffic movement in there, how many cars were going through, where they were going, right, left, to straight through. So I had asked him if he could double check how many right turners there were heading, they'd be heading eastbound on Vanderpuren, and then they would have been turning south on Holmgren.
Mhm.
Just to see if we really need a dedicated right turn lane there at that time, at this time. And if the counts were really low, maybe we could take the right turn lane out of there and then be able to put the sidewalk in without having to acquire right of way from that property. So Doug, I know, was looking into that to look at the traffic counts that were done to see if that would be feasible at all, or if that would work. And then maybe the sidewalk, and again, I don't know the funding of it and how that's funded, could be put in sooner than waiting till the development of that property to be able to put the sidewalk through. So that's what Doug's checking right now to see if that would occur, and then maybe the sidewalk could go in a little sooner than to wait till someone develops that property, that piece of property. So maybe that'll be a in queue instead of a whatever. So that's just an update on that particular one, but they'll start work on the utility and then do the roadway this year. And then they're gonna just kind of gravel in for the sidewalk at this time, is what the plans are.
So having said that, Tracy, I'm not sure how you became aware that they were redoing the roadway, but do they, when they're redoing a roadway, I don't want to assume, that's a terrible word, but do they actually look at, Rex can probably answer this, are they looking at possibilities for sidewalk and that part of it rather than just the traffic for automobiles?
There's plan to put a sidewalk in. I mean, that there's no
Okay.
question that happen. It's just,
Okay.
I think where the challenge is when it's going to be put in, whether it's going to be put in immediately with the roadway or whether it's going to be when that piece of property is developed, then they add right-of-way purchase into the developer agreement as part of the overall project. So it's just a matter of when it's going to be developed and what's needed, with that right-hand turn lane.
Dale, this is Joel. I talked to Director Martin too about this kind of concept, this policy overview, and I think from a global perspective, anytime a road is planned for reconstruction or redevelopment, it's reviewed against the bike and ped plan to see if any of the infrastructure should be included as part of that redevelopment or that reconstruction of that road.
Yeah, I guess where I was headed with that is, what if it's not in the plan? Are we still looking out? I would assume they are, but I just
Yes.
wasn't sure.
Yep. So again, the sidewalk is planned at some point, even though it's not in the plan because the section to the east has sidewalks. So now by putting it in, it makes a connection along that whole route.
Okay.
Well, and
Okay, thanks.
it's especially important because Hanson Road does not have any sidewalks, on that section. So to have it here, like Rex always said, you already have that piece from Holmgren all the way to Ashland.
Yep.
And it really makes an option for people, especially to get to the post office. Right now, to get to the post office, you have to walk on Hanson and you're walking in the grass and through there, and there's no good way, but you could go back and cut through the back way, cut through WGNR, and you'd be right to the post office. So it would add a really nice connection for people from a sidewalk on Oneida Street to a sidewalk on Holmgren and then to a sidewalk continuing on Vanderford. So it's just something to look at. I think, you know, when we talked about it at the meeting, my concern was that piece may not be developed for 20 years, you know, and we sit and wait that long for the sidewalk when there's such a need for it and a demand for it at this time. So that's the reason I kind of asked Doug to check into it a little bit further. So.
Okay.
All right, anybody else, any questions or anything to add or on this list at all? Okay, thank you. Next item is update on the Signalized intersection project. We had talked about this at our November meeting. And at that time, as Rex had on the list that we just went over, Doug is looking at doing a survey of all the signalized intersections in the village of Ashwaubenon. And the main reason he was doing it initially was to look at what ones had countdown timers and what ones did not. And you guys are all familiar with the countdown timers, basically push a button and counts down the numbers. So it's a safer crossing for people because they know if it's down at 2 or 3, they may not go. If they're a little slower, they're not going to go across, or they're going to wait till the next light. So it's just a little safer for the pedestrians. So that's what his main reason for doing the survey was, to really look at that. At the November meeting, we talked about other things that we wanted him to check into, and the list is on your sheet that we had come up with. He has worked with AIRS, and they're putting, early, I think last week, they got together to put the inventory collection sheet together, including the items that are on the list. And then he was going to sit down with me next week and just go over that and go through a couple intersections. They're going to do the inventory of a couple intersections, and then sit down with me and say, is this what you're really looking for? Is this what you want? So then when it comes to the committee, we got the information that we would like from the intersections. So my question to you, is there anything else that you want to add to this list that was not on it, or any questions that you have? I think this started with you, Randy, a little bit, with talking about the touchless funds, maybe a meeting before I was here. So any questions on that? Anything you want to add or anything to that survey?
The only question I'd add, because I wasn't at your last meeting, is, because I'm not familiar with it, is it automatic when you have a crosswalk like that, that they have a ramp style to the, you know, instead of a curb for a wheelchair?
Yes, I believe that where you have a sidewalk, you have to have a curb ramp to meet ADA requirements. I believe that's correct, Joel. I don't know if Rex, any of you can comment on that, but I believe that's true.
Okay, I read what you had there. I guess I just didn't see the ADA requirement. I do see it for the button types.
Yeah, you know, and the ADA compliant ones are the buttons that you probably see that are smaller silver ones, and they beep and they light up when you hit them. So someone maybe that is blind could hear that they've hit the button properly, and someone that maybe hearing impaired can see the light and realize that they hit the button. So those are the buttons that are really ADA compliant that we would like to see on all of our crosswalks as well.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is because I didn't see is the slope or whatever you want to call it ADA approved. It doesn't say, and maybe that's just the standard once you have a crosswalk. I mean, I don't know that. And if it's not, then I guess I'd like the question added, if they're going to go to each one of these and look at the buttons.
Dale, I do know of one case in the village on Morris and Oneida Street. There are not sidewalks there, but if you are on the, let me think, the northeast corner and you push that button to get a pedestrian light, you have to stand in somebody's flower bed. So, you know, there's no sidewalk there, but that button definitely would not be wheelchair compliant.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying.
Kyle, in that particular case, are there the narrow visual narrow lanes on both of those? So there's no pedestrian ramp or pad or anything like that at that.
Sure.
No, there's not, but I guess my feeling has been for quite a while, if it's important enough to have a button at that intersection, you should have access to it.
I would say it's not compliant, but that's something specifically that
Right.
that they're going to be working on.
Yeah,
I think this year.
yeah, that's something, Kyle, I think that was some of the reason too that they were looking at to make sure that you could get to the buttons. And that's a really good example of a problem one, Kyle, because someone that is handicapped or even someone that,
Probably the best example.
yeah, can't walk as well or struggles for whatever reason, has to literally go over the top of a barrier for a garden and then get into the garden and push the buttons. So that's a really good example of what Doug and the staff will be looking at to make sure we have a list of that and then start picking off the worst ones and try to budget and start taking care of some of that stuff and putting the concrete pads so you can get to them easier. So that's a really good example, Kyle. Any other comments on that or anything that we really missed? Randy, any comments on your end?
I was just gonna say, I know the committee now is aware of this, but looking into the future, number 5, the one we were talking about, it says, can someone in a wheelchair get to the button? Well, there are some buttons that are 3-4 feet on the grass. Some people will say you can get there with a wheelchair. You just push it across the grass. So I think we maybe should be a little more specific on wheelchair ADA compliant or something, because we've had these discussions in the past where they can still get there with a wheelchair, even if it's not paved. And I don't think that's what we want.
Right.
It's not compliant if it's just grass.
Yeah. I mean, Rex would say that's not compliant if it's grass, because then if it snows, right away, you're not compliant anymore.
That's what I'm saying. We may want to put compliant in on number 5, because it just says, can someone get there?
Okay.
They could get there, but it's.
Right. But is it ADA compliant? Good catch. Anything else, anybody? All right. Great, I appreciate it. I'll meet with Doug next week and see where they're at with the inventory. And then I'm not sure how long it'll take them to do it all, but it'll come back to a future bike ped committee for you guys to look at and maybe help prioritize some of the intersections. The other thing to remember is some of the intersections are state. The state takes care of them, some are county, and some are village. So there may be some more challenges working with the county or working with the state to get things taken care of. So that's another thing they will list on there, whose jurisdiction that actually is. And then there'll be basically another body of government that we may have to work with to get some of these taken care of. So just so you guys are aware of that as well. Okay, thank you. All right, next agenda item is the snow removal ordinance, chapter 19, article 3. You know, it's that time of year again, and we've had some snow, and then we're going to continue to get some snow. I just wanted to go, how many of you are familiar with the village's website where you can notify the village staff on problems that you have or concerns that you have? Have any of you used that?
I have not.
No,
Okay.
I have not neither.
Okay, so then I'm going to give you a 101 on this, just to let you know there's a place that you can look at. Hopefully you can all see this on your screen. That's the village's website. And basically at the front page, there's a place to click right on the right-hand side. It said notify the village. You just click on there and then you will get this form that will come up. And you just need to fill it out and then put a description of the issue or concern. And I believe, Jeremy, isn't there an area of concern? You can pick your area of concern. So if it's street repair, you know, potholes, if you have a sidewalk concern, you could use the other What happens with it, you can put in, the sidewalk at such and such place is not clear, there's a gap in the sidewalk, whatever concerns you have. You can do anything from garbage, recycling, anything. The information goes to Jeremy and then 2 other staff members here. They distribute it to the department that would be charged with taking care of that. And then they process it that way. So please, if you are out walking, you're out, biking, whatever the case may be, this is a great form to use. I've used it in the past. Jeremy probably drives Jeremy nuts because I've used it several times and telling him about different things. But it's all your different eyes out there looking at things and submitting into the village. It helps the staff do their job, and it gets the information out there because they're not always out there to be able to see those things. And like I said, you can put just about anything you want in here to check. The only thing I would say, do not put anything you call 911, don't put something that's an emergency thing or a police thing. That's not the appropriate place for this. But really anything else is. I don't know, Rex, Joel, anybody else have anything, Jeremy, anything else to add on that?
Well, if you want us to create a special, like we have area concern, I think we just have the general ones in there, but if you want us to create a topic called sidewalks or pathways or something, or we can create a drop down for that. That's real easy to do. I don't think it's come up before. So if you want us to create, like, I don't know what you would want to call it as a group or a heading, like sidewalks.
Yeah, well, either that or if we're really just specific on snow and ice, we could just put snow and ice removal or something.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. If you want to tackle that. I mean, we have street repair potholes on there.
Snow/ice removal.
Yeah, I think if we do snow/ice removal, if that's our primary concern, if we want to tackle like specific sidewalk related issues, then we'll be specific on it. My thought is let's start with snow and ice just because that's not an item and that's one that people will more than likely provide some type of feedback on.
Yeah.
Concern.
Okay, so Jeremy will add snow and ice removal on there, which would be great. Does anybody have any questions on that or anything? Like I said, it's pretty simple. It's a great way to get a hold of staff in here and let them know concerns that you have. They also have a thing in here which is pretty cool. If you see a street light out, you can report it directly to Wisconsin Public Service. You don't have to report it to the village. The only thing with that, if you see a street light out, there is a number on the pole. It's usually, I don't know how many digit number, it's a pretty long number. Write that down, and then when you go out there, then you can put it right on there and they'll know it's out and they'll take care of it. So
2 letters and 3 numbers.
Okay, 2 letters and 3 numbers, Rex is saying. So yeah, if you see that too, that's obviously a concern when an intersection or an area is not lit up like it should be. It's nice to have that reported as well, especially if it's a major intersection. So that's another place you can that you can put your street lights.
If you want to refresh the page.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is Dale. So I have a suggestion, but it's one of those careful what you wish for. I don't know how your people, if they use this as a tool or if it just buries them with all kinds of comments from the public. But you have this tool and it's there for a reason. And a lot of people probably not aware of it, just like I wasn't until you just showed it to me, and shame on me because maybe I should go on the website, right, and learn. But if you really use it as a tool and it's helpful to you, you might want to put something in when you put out the annual calendar that people have access to give you input on the village, on the website, and this location. Just a thought. And like I said, careful what you wish for because you might get a lot of stuff you didn't want to see.
No, it's a great idea. I mean, that's what it's there for, to get input. Rex, even though I think I bug him sometimes, he always tells me he's glad that I get out on the trails and tell him about concerns out there because they don't always get there. And sometimes they don't see it either. I mean, I know sometimes with Ron, my old foreman from the village, he'd go past piece of garbage 10 times and I'd be like, geez, Ron, pick that up. And I'd be out there and I'd see it. So you sometimes you just don't see that stuff as a staff because you just are there so often. So I know Rex doesn't mind when I tell him stuff, but You're right, people might get carried away and get more than they need, but I just think it's a good thing for people to be able to put that information and share it with our staff.
I thought all these went to Rex.
This is Joel. I do want to point out when it relates to like code enforcement issues, snow and ice control, by all means, please feel free to report that to us. But also recognize there's a process that we have to follow then to ensure that it gets rectified. So in many cases, there's a private property owner that by ordinance is required to maintain that. There is a due process that we have to follow to ensure that they're given an opportunity to correct the violation, do the repair. If at some point it's not corrected, then we go and we correct it. So you may report it, let's say on a Monday, and by Wednesday, it still may not be done because there's a process that we're going through to have that item corrected. So just be mindful of that. There's a due process that we have to follow in order to ensure that the sidewalk is cleared. The property owner that's adjacent to it is cleared it correctly. If they had not, then we have to provide them with proper notice and citations in order for the citations to hold up in the municipal court. And then the fees that are associated with clearing it, we have to make sure we follow those steps in tune with the ordinance. Otherwise, if we don't receive any recoverables from the fees or the fines that are assigned. So just be mindful of that. It's not instantaneous. We live in this world where everything is instantaneous.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes the wheels of government move a little slower than we would like.
And they do. That's the ordinance is attached for your information too. And just what Joel said, I mean, the adjacent property owner does get 24 hours to clear the sidewalk. And then like Joel said, there is a process that they go through to notify them, give them time to take care of it. And then if they don't, there's different processes to go through. And the other thing I think that's interesting in there is to know the ones that are the village is responsible for. So that whole list of ones that are in school areas, if you have concerns with those are all cleared by the village of Ashwaubenon, not by the adjacent property owner. So if you're out there and all of a sudden you see, Anderson on the north side between Ridge and Oneida, it's not cleared, that's not the adjacent property owner, that's the village of Ashwaubenon. So that's just kind of informational to you, so kind of what ones are the adjacent property and which ones are considered in the school zone clearing area.
To be honest, again, this is Dale. I think even, I didn't see this, but I see compliments. I think you'd be surprised if people were aware. I mean, because I see things the guys do, and I mean, they do a nice job around here, at least around by me, whether it's garbage pickup or the park or whatever. And sometimes you're like, okay, who am I going to send that kudos to, right? Who am I going to compliment? Where am I going to send it? And I see that was actually right in there. So it would be nice if because a month later you forget about it.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's there to notify the village, but it's also there to notify them of something they did good too. So put that in there too. If they're doing a good job, let them know.
Yep. Okay.
They like to hear that.
One thing when you're talking about if you go to the map gallery, hold your click.
Okay.
I don't want to steal your thought.
No, that's fine.
Scroll down a little bit. Francine just put up the map, updated map too. It kind of covers as far as which things are covered, which ones are school routes, which ones are plowed. So
Okay.
I know we typically when we have a snowstorm, that's always attached to that page as well.
Okay.
Or Doug's update, but that's always out there on the web too. Kind of gives you a better idea graphical, at least those are. So.
Okay, so everyone, go to the map gallery. You can find this map as well. It'll show you. So if you're out walking and you notice on Wabi Lane, there's a bad spot. It might be one that's, let's see, where are we at? The village takes care of or the other adjacent property does. So this will give you an idea of who's responsible for what. So this is a good tool for you as well. Any other questions on that, anybody, or anything you want to add? Like I said, I would just encourage you to, keep your eye open when you're out there, because if you're having a problem getting through that sidewalk, I'm sure somebody else is as well, and would appreciate someone calling or letting them know that, you can't get through there. So any help that you can do on that would be great. Okay, any questions on that, anybody? All right, so now you all know how to do that, so we'll bombard the village, but we probably won't have any more snow this year, so you'll have to next year. Yeah. All right, next agenda item is discussion on the clarification on the Packerland Trail snow removal. Packerland Trail is a trail that's located on the west side of Packerland, basically goes from Cormier all the way down to Hernando. Great trail, gets heavily used. I've just noticed the last few times I've gone by that quite a bit of it is actually being cleared. And that was my question, who is clearing it? Is the village, is the adjacent property owners? I know Hobart owns a piece of that. I think part of that is in the village of Hobart. So I know they've cleared before. So that's my question, who is actually clearing it, and can we get, thank them for doing them and encourage them to keep doing it? And also, is there a way for village staff to get involved and help with the clearing and maybe take care of more pieces of it? So that is my question on that one, to see where we're at. And Rex, I don't know if you know anything about that, who's doing that, or I'm assuming it's the adjacent property owners, but I'm not sure.
Some of it, I believe, is the property owner. I've heard from staff that they occasionally have seen a Village of Hobart vehicle on there doing some of it.
Yeah.
We've never asked them to do that. We haven't asked them to do that, quite honestly, because we don't do it. and ergo now is the issue is parts are being cleared, we're not clearing ours, so people are like, well, why don't you clear your part?
Yeah.
So yes, so obviously, we've talked about this, for the last 15 years, quite honestly, since the trail was put in. I will tell you what the village's current stance is, which may not be exciting for everybody, but Packerland Trail is obviously open. All of our trails are used. If we do one trail, we're going to have to be doing all of the trails, because there's not one trail that's going to take priority over the other type of a thing. And quite honestly, we don't have the staff to do that. If we wound up doing it, we'd have to stop work in other areas. And that other work, is also very valuable to the village. So at this point, whenever an official recreational trail goes before the village board for approval, whether it be to apply for a grant or if bids come in to actually put it in, the board has always stated, are we going to be clearing the trail? And we've always said we do not have plans to clear it at this time. And then they said, typically, good, we don't, we're going to keep that policy, and then they vote for it based on that information. So certainly, that policy can change at any point, and it would have to emanate from our village board for discussion. Because of basically it's just staff and time. The Fox River Trail is wonderful. I know, multiple municipalities have agreed to share in the cost of clearing the Fox River Trail. I think both Alway and Bellevue pay Brown County up to
The pier and
the pier.
Alway.
Pay Brown County for clearing the trail up to a certain dollar amount. And that works out well, specifically because that trail is not along a more busy thoroughfare per se. And I'm just going to use the Packerland Trail as an example. And I'm not saying all of our trails are like this, but the Packerland Trail is a really good example of the issues. There's a lot of traffic on Packerland, busy north-south route. As such, the county plows that after a snowstorm for multiple days in a row, multiple times per day, each time slicing up snow and mush onto that trail. On top of that, due to the general slope of a lot of the pieces of property along the Packerland Trail. There's a lot of water runoff from fields and from property onto the trail. So to maintain that, I mean, literally, it would be someone that needs to go out there multiple times, a week, potentially daily after a storm for at least a couple of days, because of the constant barrage of snow and mush and salt that's being sliced up onto it off of the roadway, not to mention all of the cross traffic coming in and out of all of the different business driveways along there as well, because those all are cleared, and so we would potentially be clearing, the trail, and then every other business would have private snow removal people trying to clear theirs. And for what it's worth, I mean, I like it or not, sometimes they push it out to the street, and sometimes they start from the street and push it in, but there would be cornrows basically on each side of the driveway. So it's a constant battle. So I'm just saying it is a logistical challenge, I think, to clear some of those trails. Not that it couldn't be done, with discussion in the future, but that's one of the reasons why, and probably the main reason why, the village has been very reluctant to agree to do that, per se. The manpower isn't there. I mean, we would literally need to hire additional people to clear them to the level that they need to be cleared. And quite honestly, as many of you know, we at times, especially after a good snowstorm, struggle to even keep our own sidewalks up to the level that they should be. So I don't know. I don't know. There's not a real easy answer to this. Obviously, it needs to be discussed on a couple different levels. But that's kind of the village's quandary right now of why some of these trails are not cleared to the extent that people would like them cleared.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
As far as the trail and snow, I think you have a point there, Rex. I think it's more important that come summertime, springtime, summertime, fall time, which more people are on the trail at that time. And I have noticed, I mean, because I do bike down the trail from to get out to the country, put it that way. And I think the problem then is in the summertime, springtime, fall time is grass and dirt that's on the trail. Kyle, what do you think? The grass is being cut and the grass is being left on the trail.
Yeah,
So-
I noticed that there's a lot of debris on the trail, or in spring, those businesses that have been plowing their driveways, there'll be mud, dirt on the trail. or sometimes, there'll be people cross, so there's a farm field there, you cross over there and there's mud on the trail. Yeah, that's a big problem. As a bicyclist, that's a big problem. I don't think I see a lot of people biking on that trail this time of the year, but part of it has to do with just the logistics of driving through the snow, and all those driveways is difficult even in good times. And when you plow the street, you go around the corner, even when the snow melts off the trail, you still have a pile of snow at all the intersections. So it's a nice trail, and there are certainly challenges year round. And I think Leroy's right. If, given the limited resources, maybe we have to look at taking care of it in the major portion of the year, and, just sort of holding off. Not that I wouldn't like to have this cleared, but I understand money and logistics, and, resources are only spread so thin. So, maybe we can just sort of keep this in front of our attention, and maybe down the road there'll be a solution. But I think Leroy's right. There may be better ways to spend the resources than trying to keep snow off of it, at least for the time being.
Glenn, our foreman's name is Glenn, and I know Glenn does a lot of work on the trails, especially down by the by the Ashwaubenon River Trail with all the goose poop that's down there constantly. Sweep it off one day, and by the end of the day, it's full again. So that's a never-ending battle down there. I know on a yearly basis when the majority of the runoff is done in the spring, he does take the brush down the Packerland Trail, but what you're saying, I've noticed it too. I've noticed, especially this fall, I noticed it on some of those the farmers' fields where the tractors came off of the field, giant clumps of mud and things like that on the trail. Glenn will usually try and hit those, but like what Tracy said a little bit earlier, sometimes you're just not looking for that because you're not expecting those obstacles on the trail. So I know a lot of you do bike and use those trails, and I would say I'll go back to something we did a little bit earlier, the agenda item that Tracy put on there with that notify the village thing. If you see issues like that, that's the perfect reason to use that type of button, because quite honestly, something like that by staff is not going to be caught the day that it happens. It's probably going to be caught a week or two later. And if you guys are out biking or walking on those trails and you see some obstacles, whether it be from field runoff or from some farmers' vehicles that have crossed or whatever it may be, please shoot that off, that concern. I mean, you can always call me. Everyone, emails me about things, or you can use that button however you want to do it, whatever is easiest for you. And then it goes to Jeremy, and Jeremy always forwards that stuff to me if it's in my wheelhouse to take care of. So, but that's a good thing to be able to report, I guess, because I agree. I've noticed, especially on that stretch as construction happens, I know it was a little dicey by one of the businesses. They were putting an addition on for a good part of the summer, where part of the trail was cut up, and it was turned into gravel basically. But there was just a lot of debris in that general area from vehicles going in and out. So when it gets bad like that, where it's actually a safety hazard, let us know, and we'll go out there and try and at least try and mitigate it as best we can.
This is Dale. I'd say just be careful what you do economically and you give it is going to be very difficult to take away down the road if you need to. So I'm kind of in your ballpark, Rex. I've always wanted to run on Packerland, and you are absolutely right with the ice and there's times when the cars can't drive in the right-hand lane because it's out on the road. So it's a mess. And it's because of the lay of the land.
Any other comments? The thing I was thinking of, and it sounds like there's not a lot of interest in it, but right now there's quite a few businesses that are clearing that trail. They're doing it on their own free will. They're doing it because people are trying to walk there or get to their businesses, and they see the value, obviously, of clearing that. And when you talk about Packerland, there's no sidewalks there, there's no bike lane there. So you really, by not clearing that trail, are cutting off access through the winter time to all those businesses, except for somebody willing to, walk through the snow there, or someone driving a car. So that's the reason that I was thinking of it. And I'm like, okay, you got 7, whatever percentage of businesses that are already clearing it. Is it worth doing some future research, talking to those businesses along there, seeing if we can encourage them, see how much is left, how much is actually left that would be the responsibility of the village that we would have to potentially take care of. Just look into it. Maybe it still is prohibitive. Maybe it still is not a good idea. The other thing on the Fox River Trail, and Natalie can maybe respond to this a little bit more, but they contract for that services. The county's not doing it. The cities aren't doing it. They contract with someone to do that. Natalie, anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. And that was So one of the things that was kind of rolling around in my head as we were talking is, you know, even if the resources are not, you know, apparent in front of us right now, you know, what are we talking about, right? Are we talking about, you know, $20,000, $100,000, $1,000? I think as we went through that process with the Fox River Trail, what we found was it was actually a lot less than we first initially thought. So I think, you know, even, you know, during this year, kind of trying to pull together a little bit more, you know, what are those numbers? What are we really looking at? Because then I think we can kind of start to talk about what potential solutions may be. And maybe, you know, to your point, Tracy, if you have a bunch of businesses who are already doing that, you know, maybe that's a really good partnership opportunity with the village. So I think if we could put a little bit of structure in terms of what do we really think the resources necessary would be to make that happen, I think that will help kind of really start to frame the conversation in a way of, okay, if this was something that was really wanted, what needs to happen in order for that to be successful?
So any comments? Go ahead, Randy.
This is Randy. I agree with what Natalie is saying. It's a very hard thing to say yes to in a short term because it's such, if the resource isn't there, the resource isn't there. But yet, if you look over, we've talked about this probably 10 times over the last 20 years or how long the committee's been around. Whether it's people trying to catch a bus to get to work on Packerland or any of those situations. And we usually come back to the cost of and the work to do it. But I do think the environment has changed, that we've got a lot more people trying to walk now in the country, in the community, that to make a change like that, I think you got to study it, try to research the, as you say, the cost, the different options. We've got some streets probably in the village that have 3 cars that drive down them during a day, 2 cars. But we still keep those things plowed because it's what we do. And if we were not plowing them now, would we not plow them if somebody came up and said, would you plow my street? It just, the pedestrian piece still has a little challenge ahead of it, of trying to accept it like you would accept preparing something for an automobile. And so I would like to see us, I know that your next agenda item is experimenting with some trail cleaning. I think, Tracy, you said you're out talking to neighbors and they were talking about the Wabi Trail, and is there any way to open a piece of it? And because it's starting to happen in other parts in the community, and I agree, Rex, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing. But I think we have to look at what kind of impact it would have. What kind of impact on the community? What kind of impact for these people that are trying to change kind of their style of transportation a little, and maybe just it is exercise, but that's good. So I would like to see us take a look at kind of organizing a review of what others are doing. You look at it online and there's people all around north of us that are doing trails in their communities, but it requires a commitment and it requires the support of the community.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion on this, on where we want to go with this, whether we want to just let it go and not pursue it any further, or if there's any feel for kind of what Randy mentioned or Natalie to at least do some additional research?
I can go just for a second here.
So I guess I want to be clear, maybe it's me not misunderstanding. Are we talking about Packerland Drive, or are we talking about the trail along the creek?
Packerland Drive itself is, I believe, what we've been talking about.
Okay. So what's a possibility? You said that some of the companies are actually doing it themselves. How about a survey to them? Why are they doing it? Is it for their employees or what? I mean, I don't know. Maybe we can get some input from them to understand why there's a need for it for them. I'm assuming, because I don't see that many people like myself. I used to run it, but then when the snow gets deep, I don't go on that anymore. I stay in town. So, you know, I'm certainly with Randy and the other ones. It'd be nice to have it, but it would be better also to understand why those businesses on Packer land are doing what they're doing.
I would say be careful. I think you said this earlier, be careful what you ask for.
Well, I know.
Because I have a feeling, don't quote me on this, but, well, I guess you could. I have a feeling some of the people look at that as a sidewalk. So I have a feeling some businesses think that they need to be plowing it.
That's great.
Which if we ask why they're plowing it, and
Yep.
they say, because we have to, and then my response is, no, you don't. Then my question is, would they continue to plow it?
Well, and I don't know if you.
And so I don't want to see, but just be aware of that. If you're suggesting, which we can certainly do, we can talk to the businesses. But
It could be a matter of framing as well, right? So we understand that you're plowing in front, you know, we're trying to take a survey of like why that's important to you, or, you know, it could be a different type of frame of just trying to understand, you know, why they believe that's important, or even if they do believe that's important, or why that impacts them in particular. So it could be a matter of how to frame that question, because I agree with you, you know, you don't want to necessarily de-incentivize them for doing that right now too.
Well, I think maybe a place to start would be just next time we get a good snowstorm, go out there and see how much is plowed and what's plowed and what's not. And, you know, just to have an idea of if the businesses are taking care of that on a regular basis, we kind of have an idea of what ground zero is, what the baseline is. And, you know, then that might give the village an idea of what, you know, what they might have to do. You know, just to step back a little bit to what Randy mentioned, you know, we've always talked about it's expensive and maybe the village can't do it, but times have changed, and maybe that's something that, and that's not for us to decide, but maybe that's something the village has to start considering. I know one of the concerns for the sidewalk on the south side of Cormier is who's going to plow that. The village doesn't want to get caught doing that. But maybe this is just has to be part of a broader conversation about trails and biking and pedestrians and what the future of the village is going to be. You know, I ride down Sandy Acres a lot, and I see an awful lot of people walking on that trail, and there's a lot of homes there. And I haven't been there recently because I only go down there on my bike, but I think that there would be a lot of people who would use that, and, you know, other trails as well. You know, so maybe this just has to be part of a bigger conversation, and certainly it's for down the road, but we have to start talking about it sometime.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this trail for 10 years or whatever, it's been 15 years, probably since I was Parks and Recreation Director, we were talking about it. So just to get off square one, I guess, and, you know, Kyle, your comment, you know, where do we go from here? You know, to get some research, see what's out there, see what's happening, and what the potential cost would be for us if we decided to go ahead with this. I mean, it's always been the thing, we can't afford it, we don't have the money for it. But do we really know what the cost of that's going to be? So let's take some steps to see if we can find that out, and then make it a good informed decision. And maybe it's something that we look at as a committee and say, you know, the cost of that's really prohibitive, we're not going there. Or we decide, hey, there's 3 trails or whatever the case may be that we really feel are important to clear. And we would like to put that in the budget. It may go through, it may not, you know, so at least it's getting us off square one, I guess, to get some further information and see where we go, and make an informed decision, like Natalie said, you know, having that information to be able to say, how do we move forward? What is the cost ramifications? How do we do this?
So Tracy, and I could be wrong, wouldn't the village have a general idea what that cost is? based on doing the sidewalks and the things they do today. They know how much time it takes per foot or per hour or fuel and the vehicle and the person in the vehicle and workman's comp and all that good stuff that it costs to have that person in there. Whether he's doing the sidewalk from a school or he's doing a pathway, they must have a general idea what it costs per hour or per, I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
I would think they keep track of their hours, right, Rex? On how much time?
I would say so, but I mean, you can put an hourly rate on it, and that's all fine and good. But the fact is,
Manpower.
it would, yeah, it's just the manpower. If we were to do it ourselves, we're going to have to hire another person. And so that becomes then, well, is that a full-time person or is that like a part-time person? And so there's a couple of different things that are kind of in the works here. It's not that, okay, well, we'll just pull this guy off of Public Works or pull this guy off of Recreation and do it. We're struggling with the sidewalks right now that we've got. And that shows with some of the comments that come in every single year about the sidewalk clearing, because many times, especially after a heavier snow, we struggle to keep up. So for us to do the trails, again, it's not a matter of us doing it. It's a matter of contracting that work out or hiring somebody in-house, another village employee to pick up that additional work. So, so when you're talking about that, and we're trying to, I don't want to always be negative on this, but I need to tell you at least what the roadblocks are so we can talk through this. Again, the village board has approved these trails based on them not plowing, not being plowed. So if we are looking at wanting to plow them or wanting to get prices to plow them, I think this almost needs to, and Joel, maybe I'm wrong on this. I'm wondering if this needs to go to the village board for direction on what to do, to make sure they're on board with any fact finding that we're trying to do. And I don't know. I think it might be because they've already told me you can put it in as long as we're not plowing. So all of a sudden, if we're looking at plowing it, I think it needs to go back to the village board to make sure they're good with us at least finding information.
Okay.
Yeah, I think somebody may have.
Okay, I think, right now we've been pretty goddamn lucky. If you look at it, we haven't had no snow. I have noticed that other years when we did have a lot of snow, where the path is located, and when the plows go through, the county plows go through, because that's a county road, right? A lot of that snow gets really piled up on that path. And I don't know, my own opinion is it would be very hard for the village to go in there with the equipment that they have. Like Rex was saying, we're talking like maybe, to go down my street, Ponderosa, it takes, 5 minutes. Out on that road out there with a lot of snow, it'd probably take an hour. We're not talking, I don't think we're talking, I don't know. I just feel that I know how everybody feels about getting it done. It should be done. Yes, I agree, but I think it's more important to keep that path open in the summertime when there's more people on that path.
Yeah, this is Joel. I just want to kind of add a couple of things to the conversation from a process standpoint. I think for your agenda today under items D and E, I think what you really want to do, and it's a very appropriate time to start to have the conversation. But this is a bigger kind of global policy discussion that extends beyond just Packerland Trail. So it's going to involve all the other trails, as Nick had mentioned before, And so I think it would be appropriate to start kind of talking more at a higher level, maybe even coming to the village board and just saying, hey, we're going to start to look at this. And we want to make sure that you're supportive of this task and this endeavor of starting to evaluate costs, identifying needs. What community areas are a priority? So we have Packerland Trail. Is that the priority, or is it all of them? And so the committee can really kind of be doing the dirty work, so to speak, determining costs, determining priority, inventory, and then throughout the course of this winter season, working on that to eventually develop a recommendation that would then come back to the village board. Regardless if it's just the Packerland Trail or it's all the trails, these are decisions that are going to require budgetary inclusion. So this isn't something that we can just pick up this year. These are costs that we're going to have to factor into the next budget cycle. And whether that's internalizing that cost through our own staff and our own equipment, or contracting that out to a third party, those are costs that we're going to have to identify and kind of include in that. So my thought is, let's start at a real high level. Let's go back to the board and say, look, there's an interest from the committee. We believe there's an interest in the community to begin maintaining these, what have been previously kind of 3-season trails into 4-season type transportation networks. Do you want us to evaluate this? Do you want us to go through with this process? Because I'd hate to have you do a lot of work and then you come to the village board and said, we never wanted to do that in the first place. A couple quick points. In previous life, I worked for the village of Bellevue, where I was in charge of maintaining these types of facilities. In Bellevue, if you're familiar, like Eaton Road, Allen Avenue, Monroe Road, those are all highways that have the sidewalk on them. Very, very difficult to maintain. It's different than the Fox River Trail from this standpoint that you have continuous plowing operations, basically 24 hours a day during a snow event. And so maintaining that trail becomes that much more difficult. So they're different than like a standard rec trail through a park that doesn't have that kind of activity. So the type of equipment and the resources that we would have is probably in many cases going to be different than a private contractor. So even getting a private contract in there would be challenging. We've tried to do that before, and it was a challenge in our area. So just be mindful of that. I think my recommendation would be start at a high level, say, look, we want to investigate the viability of making these more 4-season type trails and transportation features in the community. Are you supportive of that? If you are, then we will review and investigate the costs, the impacts, and the benefits to the community as part of our work. Hopefully you can hear me.
Someone want to make a motion from that? Right. Jolson.
I'll help you soon with the minutes.
I think that's a great idea. It's Joel, isn't it? Joel?
Yeah, have an L.
Okay, I think it's a great idea, but I think we also all have to do our part as a committee, and I'll try when it snows to take pictures of it, because then we have some ammunition. If we go to them and want it, but don't show them, what are they gonna do? I like the idea of maybe taking a hold, but taking pictures of it. How deep is it? What is the ice like? How much snow does the county, throw on the trails? I think we need to do that. Then the village might look at it and say, oh yeah, I never realized this. And oh yeah, it really looks like that. I don't know, just a thought.
But how do you find out the need? How many people are using it? They're going to need to know that too.
That's the other question that I don't know. I know that because I use Packerland a lot, that it is used a lot summer, spring, and fall. I see people on it all the time. 1 or 2, but they're walking their dogs or taking something. It is used. Wintertime, I don't know, because I don't go down Packerland that much in the winter. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I'm with you.
If Wello can provide this, or planning agency, but where I worked previously, Allegheny County was served by East Central Planning Commission. They had head counters that we could put on our trails that were automated head counters. So I'm not sure if anyone has that in this area, but that's something that we could look into as well, or the committee could look into, and you could do those traffic counts on basically through that method.
Yeah, but the problem that with that, Joel, is it's not plowed, so they're not using it. So how do you have a traffic count?
Right.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but it's catch-22.
Yeah. It's like no one's using it during the winter because they can't get on it and use it.
Exactly. That's why I don't go there.
I mean, so you're not getting the numbers. If it was cleared, how many people would use it? I don't know, so that's the whole egg before the chicken thing. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys are okay, want to pursue it, I think Joel's idea is a good one. Look at it as an overall concept and see, go to the village board with, kind of the idea that we'd like to look into it more, see about keeping them open year round, doing some research, checking into that, trying to get some numbers and some idea of what we're really looking at, and trying to look at it during the budget process to hopefully, if it's something that we want to pursue, at least we have a number then and something we can check into. So it'd be a good way to move off of square one, I guess, if that's something you guys would like to pursue.
And I've got a good camera. I'll try to take pictures. The problem with between Cormier and Highway 172, it's a long stretch and you have to park your car on Cormier, and then walk a lot of way down. If it's icy, then I might fall, but I do have a telephoto lens, so I can try to take some pictures.
Okay. That would be great. That would be great.
Tracy, this is Kyle. I really like Joel's idea of looking at it from a higher level and just starting just general discussions, and especially where the village is building new trails. There's a development along the river, the Alden Station. That's going to be a trail that goes into maybe the fairgrounds of the park or whatever. So I think this is really a good time to start looking at the long range decisions that have to be made on those things.
Yep.
And if we get it in front of the village board, even if they say they're not interested, at least we've planted the seed. It's been discussed once before. Right. Because 10 years from now, we could, or whoever's on this committee could be talking about the same thing. So we just need to plant that seed and see where it takes us.
So how do we write the motion? I think we're all agreed that we want a motion.
How about a motion? I don't know if it should go, just for the Bike and Ped Committee, to look at clearing of the trails or using the trails 4 seasons, to start doing some research on that and ask the village board for permission, I guess, to go ahead and do that. And if that's something they would consider looking at when we do our research and present it in the future to them. That's a really long motion.
The only thing I'm wondering is if we're going to put a motion for it, I feel like we should also include just like all pedestrian, like the sidewalks that are currently being done by the village, and kind of putting those in with the priority too, because I like the ideas with the trails and all of that, but I know like we talk about Cormier and different other areas where we want to add things, but then it's always who's going to do it. I think if we're going to have the conversation, I think we should keep it broad so it's not just the trails. Because I, like from a personal, like from a business standpoint at Woodside, as well as just like kids going to school, I feel like having all the apartment buildings popping up, we're having more and more employees that we are hiring that do not have cars, which is a whole new thing we're seeing. So I feel like the trails are important, but also I think from a pedestrian standpoint, I think some of the sidewalks are, in my opinion, potentially more important, that we would maybe be maintaining more of that than even some of the trails. So if we're going to get into the conversations of ranking, priority for contracting it out or village dollars and time allocations, I think we should kind of figure that all in together personally.
I mean, the thing is, right now we have a village ordinance that requires when a sidewalk goes in, Jessica, it has to be cleared. So
right, like around the schools and stuff that the village maintains, and so we've had that conversation, and I know last year we had it, I I personally feel the village needs to be a lot more progressive with the way we're handling these things, because we're trying to attract more families to come into the area, and we're trying to be more friendly to the different people coming in the apartments and things like that. If you go in a lot of other big cities, it's not as black and white. Ashwaubenon kind of is in a weird, we have a very different dynamic here. And I think it's just really easy for us to say that we said, okay, going forward, you put in a sidewalk, then the house person in front of it has to maintain it. Well, that's one of the reasons people in the city here, our village, don't want sidewalks in, and they're saying, no, we don't want them because they don't want to maintain them. And I think we're getting to a point that we need to look at it overall and say, if it's stopping us from doing it, but there's a group of people that are going to benefit from it. So especially as the village continues to allow all these apartments to go in, which I think that's great, but then you're relying on the homeowners to maintain a sidewalk so that the person at the apartment building at the end of the block can walk to work. So I think it needs to be looked at as more of a widespread thing than just the way we've been looking at it. And I think even for the ones like Rex always says, it is very difficult for our current park and rec, road crews to maintain what they're currently doing, which is why they don't want to add to it. That's why I think we need to figure what they're currently doing in with what we potentially want to do, because we should look at that all as one picture, because ultimately it's going to end up getting handled by probably the same people. Whether if you're going to contract part of it all, why wouldn't you contract all of it and then reallocate those dollars or the time that the village is already putting in somewhere else if they're already truly that strapped. So I think it just should be looked at as a bigger picture than just the trails versus sidewalks, if that makes sense.
Oh, sounds good. And Jessica, bringing up that you have more and more people that are working for you that do not have cars. Keep in mind, a third of our community here does not have a driver's license. So that's a lot of people that don't have access or don't drive at all. So they need to be able to walk and move through the community in a different route. So we don't want to disenfranchise them by not having the ability for them to walk to work or just at Jessica's business. So. All right, so did we do a motion?
Susie, do you have a motion? I did not get all of it, but the gist of it is asking the village boards for permission to research the snow clearing and/or making the trails a Four Seasons trail. So, what does that encompass what Jeff just said?
We could just change it to pedestrian facilities, and that would include sidewalks and trails and pathways, that type of thing. So it's really looking at the whole pedestrian infrastructure, and that would include then the sidewalks, Jessica. If that sounds good.
Did you get that recorded?
I think if I may, just the motion would be to recommend or request village board consent. So request village board consent to have the committee review and potentially recommend revisions or amendments to the village's snow and ice control policy for sidewalks and trails in the village. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yes.
And I suspect that the effort will be obviously not only the committee, but staff will play a critical role in getting you the information you need to make an informed recommendation back to the village.
Okay, so understand that motion. Joel, can you make that motion? Or does someone from the committee? Okay, someone from the committee would make that motion that Joel just gave us wording on.
Jessica, go for it.
All right, I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Well, that was a lot of discussion. I appreciate it. I think we encapsulated the pilot program, the next agenda item with that, because it's part of the whole discussion thing, unless we want to discuss the pilot project yet, but it's kind of enclosed with that one, but I don't know. The other question I have for Rex is they are clearing the trail from Hilltop on Morris all the way out to Lombardi, and that is a trail that is being cleared right now. So why is that trail being cleared and no other trails in the village of Ashwaubenon?
It typically has been cleared because of the Packer traffic, but we haven't had a Packer season. So that is a question for Public Works, because I don't direct anybody to clear trails.
Right.
However, I walk my dog on that trail, so it's okay. I say, I live on Hilltop, what can I say?
Thanks for that. I was aware of that question, talking with Doug. It sounded like, yeah, they typically maintain it only during Packer season. Once Packer season is done, then they no longer maintain it. So it's just a matter of getting what would traditionally be fan traffic on the road onto the trail during game day.
Okay. So then I guess the question to you guys is, the pilot program, the next agenda item, is that something we want to discuss, or was that kind of discussed as part of the Packer land discussion?
I think it was discussed, and and that's going to be part of the future conversations, that either the village board is going to want to be involved or they're not. So I think we have to get the village board input first.
Okay. All right. So just so you know, right now, just what we have, and Rex, you can maybe correct this if I'm wrong, but we have about 8.8 miles of trail in the village of Ashwaubenon right now. So that's the amount of trail that we're working on, or we're talking about. And there's about 0.4 of a mile that is actually the Sand Acres Park Trail. That's a crusher dust trail. So that one, you know, maybe wouldn't be cleared because it's crusher dust.
8.8 is
Yeah, yeah, 8.8 is paved, but you take 0.4 out of there for the crusher dust trail.
Yeah, that, you've got Sherwood Forest.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of.
So there's, you know, when we're
Which wouldn't be
talking.
clear. Those really, like, because part of the DNR grants on a lot of that stuff was for cross-country skiing as well. So I think
Right.
Hidden Valley, some of those trails I think need to remain.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I think the trails that we're probably talking about, and my thoughts would be the paved trails that are there, because to try to clear a crusher dust trail would be tough, just because you may end up with rocket. So that's the amount of trail that we're really discussing, is about 8.4 miles of trail that the village does have right now. And the bulk of it is on Packer land, which about 3.2 miles of trail is on that Packer land trail. So that's probably our longest one right now. So, okay, any other comments on the trial, the pilot?
Tracy,
Okay.
this is Randy. Could we put on our next meeting's agenda, kind of the agenda item to how we would package this presentation to the board? Because I just don't feel if we go and say we'd like to look at this, I can kind of predict the response based on prior conversations.
Okay.
I think we've got to, just like we're looking at a larger scope of it, as we look ahead, what's changing in the communities and why this is important, what other communities are doing, stuff we can do and present to them without doing a detailed study. But I think we have to kind of have a case put together of the importance of it. Because to say we're to do it, it's very hard to break the barriers. Talk about barriers right now, tonight.
Right.
Very hard to break those.
Yeah.
And the history of kind of talking about this has not been extremely positive. So I think we got to have kind of a good business case why it should be studied. It's for the resident.
What if we would get, and I don't know if this is permissible, you guys could weigh in on this, like a subcommittee of this group, a smaller number that would be willing to work on that? If there was anybody that would be willing to do that, I mean, I would be willing to sit down and work on that. Maybe we could bring Natalie in from Wello for some of the regional type information that we may need. Rex may sit on it, maybe a couple of committee members that would be interested. And that way we're kind of getting our ducks in a row before we go to village board.
Mm-hmm.
Permissible?
Sure, that sounds good.
My thought, this is Joel again, I apologize for jumping in constantly,
No,
but
do.
my thought would be, if you do that, just publicly notice it as a meeting of this committee.
Okay.
And then whoever is available to attend can do that. Just because if you have more than 2 people, you're going to be creating some quorum issues, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anyone is interested in helping out with that, please, why don't you let Susie, is that okay if they get a hold of you? Let her know, and then we can set something up, the small group, and notice it, like Joe said, that, and anyone else that wants to show up to help, that would be great. It's a good idea, Randy.
So maybe we should all think about that before the next meeting and each person come up with a suggestion to support what Randy's saying, to support the motion that we're presenting, rather than just and then the select few can take it. But I don't think, to me, we're all here. Let's all try and come up with an idea that we think, and maybe it's not a good idea, who cares? And then we can put them together and then create your smaller group and go from there. So at least they got some support, whoever takes this on.
Sure.
That sounds good. So the next agenda, then we'll just put on the discussion, further discussion on this, and then we'll go from there and see where we go. And we'll wait on going to village board till we get all our ducks in a row.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Everybody pray for snow. Well, it'll help.
All right, anything else on that? Any other suggestions before we move on, you guys? And I appreciate all the input today. I know it's been a long meeting. Let's see, review of possible action on the 2018 plan projects. Rex, anything on that, or is that this particular document? Or is this something else?
It is.
Yeah, I don't have anything on it.
Okay. Did everybody get the document? It's kind of the one, you probably can't see it very well, but it's kind of the, that's columns and table.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so maybe if nothing else, everyone, look at it. If there's anything else you want to add to it or any comments you have, we could, is that an ongoing agenda item on there usually? So
It typically is.
It kind of is, because as things as new developments happen, things can be added for sidewalk.
Okay.
When pedestrian accommodations, as things get completed, then, notice is made to delete it from that list, just to keep it updated as much as possible.
Okay, so we'll stick it on the next meeting again, take a look at it, and then we'll just keep it on there as a regular agenda item so we can discuss it as needed. Okay?
Yep.
Department reports, anything, Rex, additional like that?
Well, I mean, we're continuing work on the 2 main projects, West Main Avenue Trail, from Sand Acres Drive up to South Ridge Road. Due to the cost, right now the cost at just the utility relocation is at about $285,000. That is if we have a 5-foot terrace. So the county wants us to have a 10-foot terrace. We're going to file for an exemption, the 10-foot terrace, because it would cost us exponentially more money to relocate more utilities and more right of way to put that in. So that's kind of where we are at right now with it. But we are moving forward. They've done potholing. They've done a lot of utility finding out there. Regarding the Ashwaubenon River Trail, we're still working on the bridge design specifically. There are homeowner concerns along Broadway regarding the height of the bridge and boating access to those folks on Broadway. And so we're working with Grafe on potentially the height of the bridge, which certainly affects then the property at Alden Station in terms of the length of the landing, the width of the landing. The higher you go, the more property is needed for the landing on that piece of property, which is private property. So internally, a few things we're working on there. And then next step is to probably have another meeting with the homeowners on Broadway and just kind of present what we have and what some potential compromises are.
So going back to the first project, that's the one from Sand Acres to Ridge, is that correct?
Yep.
And then, so you're gonna look for a 5-foot right of way versus 10, which is what the county would typically require. So then will that sidewalk or path, whatever you're putting in, be adjacent to the curb, right against curb like it is on Cormier?
It'd be it's a 5 foot. So it's a 10-foot trail, but it would be 5 foot back of curb.
Got it, okay, I'm
So-
sorry, I misunderstood you, okay. Okay, so 10-foot path, 5 feet back from curb, county usually likes 10.
Correct.
Got it, okay, thank you. Any other questions for Rex on those two projects? Anything else, Rex? Any other projects or anything? All right, state DOT, there's no rep here. Public safety, Jason, do you have anything to add? Anything you want to bring up?
Yeah, I'll go back to the ridge issue with the pedestrians, Tracy. If we have issues like you're talking about there, you can also email me dates and times where that's really happening. And I could try to get some guys out there and watch for that and maybe get some warnings out there to drivers. I know that it's happening all throughout the village. I see it all the time. But if we have a concentrated area, we can concentrate our efforts in that area during those times and try to educate the drivers a little bit more. So everybody has my email. If there's something like that we can help with, please let me know.
That'd be great. Thank you, Jason. Do you know if the lighting is any better up on the north end of Holmgren for you? I know that came up at the last meeting. Have you noticed more of the lights on and it's better up there?
Yep, that got fixed within the week, so that's awesome.
Okay,
So
great. Good. Thank you. Any other questions for Jason or anything to bring up for Jason, anybody? All right. Let's see, schools, anything correct on schools, anybody? And then Natalie from Wello did leave something. Jeremy, do you have that? Let's see, Wello update, we will be launching a Yield to Your Neighbor campaign this year, building upon the countywide Frogger operations. We have a value partnership with Ashwaubenon, more to come. Nice seeing you all, Natalie. The Yield to Your Neighbor campaign, are you guys familiar with that? Basically, it's a crosswalk awareness campaign to remind people that they need to stop for people in the crosswalk and encourage people to stop for people in the crosswalk. I know they've done it in Ashwaubenon. They did it at the stadium crossing that we talked about earlier, the one between the Titletown district and the stadium. They did one there a couple years ago. So Ashwaubenon has participated, in the past. So she would like just to continue that relationship and will reach out to us in the future to hopefully get us involved in that. And I know public safety has been instrumental in helping that occur as well. So that is it from Wello. Okay, any other public comments? Anything that you have on biking and walking in the community that you wanted to add that we did not touch on this evening?
Rex, this is Dale. Hey, the lights on the gazebo, nice job again this year. We love it over here.
Good.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Which gazebo?
We have lights on at what? He must have St. Acres Hotel. Holiday spirit.
Whose phone is it? Who's the number? All right. Okay, then any other comments from community? Anybody have anything else to add? Otherwise, the next Bike and Ped meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 8th. We have a couple items on the agenda. Susie, can you do that? And anything else that you may add?
Well, we have we're going to go back to the projects for next, and then we're going to communicate on the presentation to the village book.
Okay. Any other agenda items anyone would like to see? Jessica, have you had any more input on the grant that you're applying for the senior facility?
We're actually working through stuff with our insurance right now because ironically our insurance company is questioning if that is a viable grant for us to be applying for because they do not feel Ashwaubenon is a very safe place for people to bike, and so they don't know that they want our facility getting one of the bikes and bringing our residents out in our local area because they don't feel that we are in a safe place to be doing that with residents actually. So we're working through that with our insurance company right now. The grant actually, however, is looking kind of promising, so we are still pushing through with that process. I did get the overhead pictures and stuff that I can present even like maybe at the next meeting for the areas that we would like to extend our area on our campus, which might be even more important now if our insurance company doesn't want us taking our residents off campus. So the other thing we were looking at was actually like some of the trail systems with them being closer would be, you know, seeing if there's a way we could load that bike and the residents up and even going to a trail if, you know, that's deemed to be safer. So the closest facility that has that is down in Milwaukee. So as far as where we are located in the state, we're looked at really good for being a potential place because they want more of these, the bikes out across the state. And so we would definitely be the only one in this area with it. So I think it would be really great to get. We're even talking about like with our partnership with like the community center, being able to offer that with like seniors in the community. We think it would just be a really cool thing to be able to do. So hopefully pretty soon the insurance gives us the go ahead with that.
That'd be great. I don't know if everybody knows the project that Jessica had put in. Do you want her to just summarize that real quick? Does everybody remember that project? And some of you weren't at the meeting. Maybe Jessica, you can just touch on it real quick.
Sure. So we applied for a grant. I'm totally blanking now, of course, on the name of it, but essentially they're bicycles that residents that are in wheelchairs in, that a staff member or a lot of places use volunteers, that it is a bike that you pedal and it has the electronic assistance to it, that then residents that are in wheelchairs can sit in the front of it and actually like go for rides in them. So a lot of like you see like the team triangles that you'll see them in some different races that you'll see in different communities. So we're looking for the one for our residents on our campus so that we could get some of our residents that aren't as out and about to be able to get them and kind of take them for a bike ride, if you will, in the community to get that good mental health break for them. We're working on a grant for that.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Sorry the phone was ringing so people couldn't hear it, but I appreciate your input. If
Sorry
there's
about that.
anything-
We're always like you.
Yeah, if there's anything you need, Jessica, from us for the grant, like a letter or something, please let us know.
I did offer to them for that, so they said they probably will, but once they know more pointed which way they would want the recommendation for, so I'll let you know as soon as I hear from them.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
If you'd be willing to share the next time, I'd like to understand more of their reasoning why they feel Ashwaubenon isn't safe. What, you don't have to get into it now because we're way late. Sure, I'd like to understand all that better.
Yeah, we can talk about it at the next meeting for sure.
Okay, we'll put something on the next meeting about that, Jessica. If you can plan on doing something on that, that'd be great.
Sounds good.
You. Yep,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, everybody. So motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank
Second.
you. Second, Randy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. I know it was a long
Aye.
meeting. I think we got some good stuff done, and I appreciate all your input, and we will see you in February.
Okay,
Happy New
bye.
Year, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, bye.